Alright family, we're going to make this quick. I just spent the last hour and a half finishing up the history, and it's exciting that it's done. We get to finally take a look and see where we stand amongst our peers, and it's really exciting. It's probably one of my favorite things to keep up with in the PLC, and I'm just so excited to see how it plays out over the course of the next 20, 30 years, you know what I mean? But because I spent that much time working on the history, I'm going to keep this podcast short. It's going to be standings through week 1. It's going to be the transaction of the week. It's going to be week 2 matchups. And I think that's it. So again, don't want to take too much time. Let's go ahead and hop right in. All right, everybody. So just like that, we're in the podcast. This is episode 2. This is week 2. And first thing we're going to talk about really quickly is the standings through week 1. So everyone has played one match. We don't have any bye weeks this week, or this year, excuse me. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, so everyone's played one. We have 16 players. Everyone played everyone else one time. So Zach currently, he picks up right where he left off last season. He won last season after, having a crazy record. I think I don't even know, was he 6-1? I think he lost to Steven kind of early on, kind of midway through the season, but he was still atop the standings basically throughout the entire season. So he kind of just picks right up right where he left off. So Zach is at the top at 1-0, winning by 5 this week. And then we have a couple players who won by 4. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. So Speakman is in the second place spot. Dan, myself, and Phil, we also won our matches by 4, so we are tied for second, kind of. I'm sure we'll kind of, as the season goes on, some of us will move up, some of us will move down. That's just the way that's going to work out. But then, not Phil, Brendan, Brian, and Jay Wade, they each won as well, but they won by 2. So they kind of are tied in that third spot, I guess. Technically, they're in, it's the 6th through the 8th spot. Again, the standings are going to kind of shape themselves up as we continue to play. But yeah, Zach, Speakman, Dan, me, Phil, Brendan, Brian, and Jay Wade. We are all 1-0 this past week, and that's your 1 through 8 spot. And then you have your 9 through 16 spots. So these are the players that lost, again, just in week 1, so it's really not much gameplay to base this off. But we have Reese in the 9 spot, Evan in the 10 spot, Ian in the 11, Corey in the 12, Justin in the 13, SB in the 14, Ty in the 15, and Simon in the 16th spot. So, again, that's going to change. So I'm not really, the standings, we don't have to take too much time on this week because, again, we have players that won by 2, and they're all tied. Players that lost by 2, they're all tied. Won by 4, lost by 4, everyone's all tied. So that's kind of all I'm going to do for the standings this week. And, you kind of know where you fall, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. The next thing we're going to talk about really quickly, again, is just the transactions. I'm not even going to really cover, I guess I could cover everyone's transactions. It's not a big deal. So SB drops Quagsire, picks up Floatzel. I love Floatzel, just adorable. Speakman drops Toxapex and picks up Hypno. Again, strange Pokemon, but to each their own. Brendan drops Poltegeist, love Poltegeist, but picks up Heracross. Put a little star by that transaction. Ian drops Flapple, picks up Salazzle. Evan drops Vivian, I don't know. It's the butterfly thing. And picks up Barrascuda. I dropped Lycanroc Midnight and pick up Quagsire. Arise drops Spidops, Trashmon, and picks up Dunsparce. Then we also had 4 trades, which is kind of crazy because looking back to that very first transfer weekend before the season's battles started, there was only 2 trades. In this past weekend, there was 4, so it's kind of interesting. But Arise trades Chansey to Simon for Dashbun. People will say he kind of got off there, but yeah, again, to each their own. Dan trades Serena to me for Toedscruel. I regret that trade. I regretted it before I made it. Regretted it after I made it. Just a dumb trade on my part, but it is what it is. SB trades Skunktank to Evan for Revavroom. I think some people were saying that someone got off there too. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Or in chat, or whatever. Ian trades Morgrim to Ty for Oranguru. I thought that was kind of interesting because Morgrim, I think, is really, really good. Maybe he just wanted to go for some Trick Room. Again, Oranguru has, Instruct, so you set up Trick Room, instruct your Pokemon next to you, and get some big damage off. So, I don't know, just kind of interesting. But yeah, Morgrim, I think Ian, the motivation behind that trade is that he already had a few Eviolite users. Like this past weekend, I think he brought Morgan with a Focus Sash because he couldn't bring it with Eviolite because it was on the Hippopotas, whatever that Pokemon's name is. But yeah, so maybe that's the motivation behind that trade. But I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time here either. I think that the transaction of the week, I realistically think I should give it to Brendan. So Brendan drops Poltegeist, which you can't use in our meta. Just Poltegeist doesn't work. I want it to work because I love that Pokemon, but it just doesn't work. It's just too frail. It doesn't work. So he drops Poltegeist and picks up Heracross. So we were in Discord at one point over the weekend just talking about Heracross. Actually, I think it was Friday night going into the wire. And actually, you know what? Was it? Maybe it was Saturday night when we were raiding. I can't remember. I think it was Saturday night. But we were just talking about what would be like a good Terra type for Heracross. And ultimately we came to the decision that Rock Terra is probably the best. Just because, you resist your flying weakness. I think you resist fire. I think you resist a couple weaknesses, and then you can go for some big damage. You can kind of turn your little Heracross into Mega Heracross by going Rock Terra. And I don't want to get into specifics. If you really want to, know, we can drop it in chat. Just hit me. Or, hit Brendan. Talk to him about it. I don't know. It's his Pokemon now. So, yeah, I think that is probably the best pickup this week. I would say that my pickup is pretty solid as well, because Lycanroc Midnight, and I only say that because I'm going into a matchup with a Dondozo? Yeah, Dondozo. I'm going into a matchup with the Dondozo, and Quagsire, naturally is going to, I don't know if it resists the water type moves. No, I think it's neutral because it's water ground. I don't know. But it has Unaware, so Dondozo can kind of boost up in his face, and it's not going to do as much damage because of the Unaware. So I just feel like because I'm going into this matchup, it kind of makes a rethink. So am I going to bring it? Am I not? Is he going to bring Dondozo? Is he not? I think that, with that being the case, just because of that matchup this weekend. But again, I mean, you guys could have made some really good transactions for your matchups, and I just don't realize it because they're not my team. So maybe I'm giving myself a little too much credit there. So I'm going to give it to Brendan. Brendan with a really, really, really good pickup this past weekend. And yeah, that's your transaction of the week. So good stuff. Good stuff, Brendan. Okay, now we're going to talk about week 2 matchups. So again, I'm going to keep this very short. I feel like I'm flying through, but it's okay because this is where I think the podcast is going to shine, because with the history being done, we kind of know how everyone stacks up against everyone else. So you can go into the PLC history and you can see, all right, Ian and Ty, they play this week. Ian and Ty have played, let me scroll up a little bit. I'm not going to do this for every matchup, don't worry. But Ian and Ty have played twice in the PLC history. They played 2 times. And surprisingly, I mean, Ty has actually come out on top both times. So that's kind of interesting. But because we have the PLC history updated, we can now see that. So, going into your week 2 matchup, if you're curious, just go take a look at the history. And you can see, how have I done against so-and-so? Is this a matchup that I struggle with? Is this a matchup that I've historically done pretty well in? And you can find that out now in the history, so that's kind of cool. But what I will do is I'm going to talk about the week. I'm going to talk about the matchups for this week, but I'm going to talk about how these players matched up last season. So I'm not going to do the history unless it's important. So if there's an important history between the 2 players, I'll call that out. But if not, I'm just going to refer to last season's matchup. So Ian and Ty, again, I just kind of covered their overall history. But last season, they met in week 15. And Ty came out on top by 5. So Ty kind of laid the smackdown there last season. And kind of interesting stuff. Because if you remember correctly, Ty and Ian, they both ended up in the play-in round. So, last season, I think the play-in race, I guess, was very, very close. You know, we played 17 weeks last season, and Ty, 3 weeks to go in the season, came out on top against Ian, so that was a big win for him. But yeah, we'll see how it matches up this week. And then the next matchup is Justin and Jay Wade. So Justin and Jay Wade did play we all played everybody last season, but they played in week 9, and Jay Wade came out on top in that matchup by 3. So cool. And Jay Wade actually had a pretty good year last year. So, yeah, he dealt with COVID a little bit. As I was going through the weeks or season 7 stuff, I'm seeing these forfeits and I'm seeing these item things and I'm seeing all this stuff. And I remember, oh yeah, Jay Wade did have COVID for like a week or two. Dan had COVID too. Like, yeah, just crazy stuff. But yeah, they matched up in week 9 and Jay Wade came out on top. The next matchup is Corey and Brendan. So Corey, again, this is his rookie season, so he has no history, essentially. So they've never matched up. This will be the first time that they meet, and I'm excited to see who comes out on top. Because Corey, again, I played Corey last week, and he has the right ideas going into his matches. And it's just, we'll see how this season pans out for him. But yeah, this is the first time they match up, so excited to see how that turns out. And then we have Evan and Dan. So Evan is semi-rookie, right? Because Evan played 3 games last year, and then had a forfeit. But he only played 3 players, and Dan was not one of them. So they've never played. So again, another matchup where this is the first time these 2 players are meeting, and we'll see how it goes. Good luck to you both. All right, so now we get into some history. Reese and I play, and we've been at this for 8 years, or 8 seasons. So Reese, myself, original season 1 participants, and we did play last season in week 1, started the season out against each other, and I won that matchup by 1 Pokemon remaining. So that was kind of cool. Anytime you can get a game off of Reese, that's pretty solid. But I also want to point out that this is technically a semifinal rematch. Going back to season 1, Reese and I played in semifinals, and Reese beat me 2-1. And I'm kind of upset because I actually remember this very vividly. Do I remember it vividly? I think I had Venusaur on my team. I sludge bombed into his Chansey and I poisoned it. And if I would have survived I'm sure it was a body slam or something like that. If I would have survived, the poison damage would have killed him and I would have won the set. But I didn't survive, and he beat me in that playoff matchup. Sorry, I almost said play-in. But in that playoff matchup, Reese did come out on top, and we all know how that goes. He goes on to face Ian in finals and wins that matchup. So he won his first championship, and I was so close. I was literally a poison tick away from going to finals that year, and I did not. Didn't happen. So, yeah, technically, again, it's been a long time, but this is a semi-final matchup from season 1. So, yeah, excited to play Reese. This is always a fun matchup for both of us, I'm sure. Next is Simon and Speakman. So Simon and Speakman did play last season. Simon had kind of a rough year. They played in week 16, and Speakman won by 2. So Speakman did come out on top there. And I'm sure Simon's looking to, again, he's kind of, he's got his history with the PLC as well. He always keeps a good attitude, and I'm excited to see him, perform this season. So, hopefully he gets this dub. But at the same time, Speakman's really talented. Again, I think it was season 5. He was the top of the leaderboard for, I don't know if it was weeks, 1 week. I can't remember exactly, but I think it was season 5. He was up there. And, yeah, so he's a good player too. So he's going to bring a competent team. So Simon, you really got to buckle up and get ready for that. So good luck to you both. And moving on. So next is SB and Phil. So SB and Phil did play last season. Again, we played everybody. Long season. A mistake of a season, some would say. But SB and Phil played in week 14 of last season. SB had kind of a rough season last year too, if I remember correctly. But Phil came out in their week 14 matchup from last season by 1. So it must have been a close match. But yeah, Phil did win that by 1 Pokemon remaining. So good luck to you guys, and I'm excited to see how your week 2 matchup this season goes. And then the last matchup for this week. So this one is actually probably the coolest matchup of the week. I'm going to get into some history really quickly. Let's scroll. I got to scroll down this time. Zach. So Zach and Brian match up this week. Zach and Brian did play last season in week 7. Zach won by 2. But they played each other again last year in the semifinals. In the semifinals, Zach did beat Brian 2-1, and then that was, en route to his 3rd championship. But if I remember correctly, that was a very close game. And actually, let me pull up season 7, because if I do remember correctly, Brian won game 1 of that set. Hold the phone. I think he did win game 1 of that set. Yeah. If I highlighted correctly, Brian, again, Zach had the craziest season last year. Finished the season at 13-3. Dominant performance. He was the top of the leaderboard, I think, from the jump to the end of the season. But Brian did go into playoffs and took game 1 off of Zach. But then, Zach did do what Zach does. Came back and won the next 2 games to advance to finals. But again, this is a really cool matchup, because this is where the history kind of comes into play. So they did play again. Season 7, week 7, Zach came out on top, but then they played in semifinals last year. And Brian, put up a valiant effort, but Zach came out on top. Zach probably had some RNG that game, always. But, again, that's just exciting to know that this is a semifinal matchup. Not from Season 1, but from Season 7. So literally like 5-6 months ago they played in winner go home set, and Zach won. So, Brian, does he have revenge on his mind, or is he just kind of, it's early in the season and I'm just trying to, bring a competent team, kind of learn my team? Is that kind of how he's going to approach this? So those are your week 2, season 8, week 2 matchups. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this here because it's midnight and I need to go to sleep. And yeah, that's your 16-minute podcast. I think, future episodes may be this long. They may be longer. I think episode 1 went about 30 minutes. So I don't know. I'm not sure how this is going to look. But again, this episode, I just wanted to, kind of blaze through because I spent so much time on that history. But again, I wanted to get that done because it's really exciting to look at. It's so cool. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed the little bit of history that I brought to you. And yeah, I will see you guys in chat. Feel free to, like this video. Drop a comment if you want to, duke it out with some fellow PLC members in these YouTube comments. If not, that's cool too, whatever. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. And if you made it to the end of this video, if you're hearing this right now, at me in chat and say Philly special. How about that? At me and say Philly special. That will let me know that you made it to the end of the video. And Ty, shout out to you. You are the only one that hit me with the solid snake last episode, and I appreciate that, dog. Yes, that doesn't go unnoticed, so thank you. And but again, if you made it to the end of this episode, at me, Philly special. I want to see that. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys in chat. I'll see you guys next week. I'll see you guys at some point. And yeah, have a great night. Have a great day. Peace.